What if Ferrari has been hiding its true potential, and Miami is the exact moment where everything is going to change? Because we are not talking about a simple improvement, we are talking about a package capable of eliminating their greatest weakness, correcting the problem that has prevented them from winning races, and possibly turning them into the team to beat in all of Formula One. The question is Ferrari really about to start another championship for Miami, or is this just another promise? Ferrari arrives at the Miami Grand Prix in a position that, at first glance, may seem solid, even promising, but which in reality hides enormous internal tension. The initial results have been enough to stay in the conversation, with consistent podium finishes reflecting that the SF26 has a competitive foundation, but at the same time leaving a clear feeling. This car is not designed to win under normal conditions. It is a car that needs specific circumstances, rival mistakes, or chaotic scenarios to stand out, and that in such a tight championship is a critical weakness that they cannot afford to sustain for much longer. The problem is not pure speed, because Ferrari has it. The real conflict is how, and when they can use that performance. Throughout the first races, a repetitive pattern has been seen. Moments where they seem competitive, even capable of fighting at the top, followed by phases where they simply disappear, especially on straights or at key moments of the race. This is not a minor or punctual failure. It is a structural limitation that completely conditions their ability to compete against teams like Mercedes, which have proven to be able to impose pace without depending on the context. This is where the real importance of Miami begins to be built. It is not just another race on the calendar. It is the point where Ferrari has decided to concentrate its first major technical offensive of the season. The previous several-week pause was not a break. It was a strategic opportunity that the team used to do something that normally does not happen in the middle of the season: merge two development lines into a single package. This decision completely changes the approach because it is no longer about small cumulative improvements, but rather a leap in performance that seeks to immediately impact the competitiveness of the car. Within the team, this set of updates has been described as a package and a half, an expression that perfectly reflects the ambition behind this move. It's not just an evolution, it's a deliberate attempt to upset the current balance of the grid. And that intention is further reinforced by the statements of Frederic Vasseur, who hinted that starting in Miami, we could be talking about a completely different championship. It is not an empty phrase, it is a direct signal that Ferrari believes it has found a solution to its deepest problems. And everything revolves around a key point that has marked the beginning of the season: energy management. The SF26 has been limited by a phenomenon that directly affects its performance in the most important moments, the so-called superclipping. This problem has caused the car to not deliver all of its electrical power when it should, generating speed losses on straight lines and a constant feeling of inconsistency in acceleration. In competitive terms, this means that Ferrari cannot defend positions effectively or attack when given the opportunity, becoming trapped in a sort of limbo where the potential exists but cannot be fully exploited. What Ferrari is preparing for Miami aims directly to resolve this critical point. These are not just minor adjustments, but a deep overhaul of the energy management system with new algorithms, new deployment strategies, and most importantly, greater control by the pilots over how to use that energy in each phase of a lap. This change, although it may seem technical, has enormous implications on the track because it transforms the way the car responds in decisive moments. If this solution works as expected, the SF26 would cease to be a reactive car and would become one capable of dictating the race pace. And that is the difference between fighting for podiums and fighting for victories consistently. Miami, therefore, is not simply an opportunity for improvement. It is the stage where Ferrari will try to completely redefine its season, going from being an irregular contender to a true championship contender. And the most interesting thing of all is that these types of changes do not usually show gradual effects. When a team manages to correct a structural weakness of this caliber, the jump in performance is usually immediate and visible. Therefore, what is at stake in Miami is not just a technical evolution. It is the real possibility that Ferrari will change the course of the entire season in a single weekend. Until now, Ferrari has been a team that competes, but does not control. They have always been in that uncomfortable zone where they have enough pace to be close, but not enough to decide races. And this has been constantly reflected in his inability to defend himself on the straight, in the difficulty of overtaking without depending on other people's errors, and above all, in the impossibility of managing long stints with authority. That is to say, Ferrari has not had strategic control of the races, and in Formula One, that is what separates a contender from a dominator. With the improvements coming to Miami, that scenario can change radically. Because if the new energy management system works as expected, Ferrari will not only gain top speed, it will gain consistency. And this is even more important. Consistency is what allows a car to be predictable, and a predictable car allows engineers and drivers to build aggressive strategies without fear of performance collapsing at key moments. This opens up a whole new range of possibilities. For example, in qualifying, Ferrari could stop hiding its limitations on the straight and start exploiting its full potential in a lap. This means better starting positions, something essential in circuits like Miami, where grid position determines a large part of the result. But even more important is what happens in the race. A Ferrari without clipping problems can defend itself, can attack. You can better manage the use of ERS in direct duels. And this completely changes its behavior against rivals like Mercedes or even McLaren. Because until now, when they reach that critical point where a position is decided by braking, a long straight, an attempt to overtake Ferrari was vulnerable. He lost that invisible battle of energy, and with it his position. With this new package, that weakness could disappear. And if it disappears, Ferrari stops being a team that reacts and becomes one that forces others to react. But there is something even more important, something that often goes unnoticed, the psychological impact. When a team introduces an improvement that changes its performance immediately, it not only affects its results, it affects the entire grid. Mercedes, which has so far built its advantage on consistency and the ability to execute clean races, could suddenly find itself with a rival capable of matching or even surpassing that level. And McLaren, which has proven to have a very balanced car, could come under pressure if Ferrari manages to unlock that performance that has until now been contained. This generates doubts, pressure, errors. And Ferrari knows it. That's why Miami is not just a technical update, it is a strategic coup. It is the moment chosen to change the narrative, to go from persecutor to real threat. Because if they get the car to perform as expected from the first weekend, the message will be clear. Ferrari is no longer waiting for opportunities, it is creating them. However, this is where the element of uncertainty appears. Because these types of changes, although promising, also have risk. Integrating such a large package with profound modifications in critical areas such as energy management is not something that always works immediately. There may be adaptation problems, lack of correlation with the simulator, or even unexpected behavior in real racing conditions. And that is the real point of tension. Ferrari is not only betting on improving, is betting on getting it right the first time. If they achieve it, the championship changes. If not, they could miss a key opportunity at a time when their rivals are not waiting. And that's where Miami stops being just a race and becomes all or nothing. And this is where everything converges, because Miami will not only define if Ferrari improves, but if it is really ready to change the course of the season. If everything they have prepared works as they expect, the impact will not be progressive. It will be immediate. Ferrari would go from being that team that is always close to becoming one that is beginning to set the pace. And in Formula One, that change of role alters everything. Because when a car stops chasing and starts leading, not only do the results change, the decisions, strategies, and the way in which rivals face each weekend change. A Ferrari capable of correctly managing its energy without losses on the straight and with consistent behavior automatically becomes a real candidate to win races continuously. It would no longer depend on external circumstances. It would no longer need chaos or outside errors. He would finally have the ability to build victories from control. And that's what makes Miami a breaking point. Because if Ferrari achieves that leap, the championship stops having a clear leader and enters a completely different phase. Mercedes would lose that advantage based on perfect execution. McLaren would have to respond to a rival that can now match its balance, and the fight would become a much more open, more unpredictable scenario, and much more dangerous for everyone. But there is something even deeper. If Ferrari gets it right in Miami, it not only gains performance, it gains inertia. And inertia in Formula One is one of the most determining factors that exist. It is what turns a specific improvement into a streak of results, which generates confidence within the team, which allows more risk and strategy, which makes the drivers begin to believe that they can win every weekend. And when that happens, growth is no longer just technical, it is structural. Ferrari would enter a completely different dynamic. One where each race is no longer a test, but an opportunity. One where the margin of error is reduced because the car responds. And one where, for the first time in a long time, they could begin to really push for the championship. But if they fail, if improvements don't work as expected, if the problem isn't completely resolved, or if performance doesn't appear immediately, then it can be a hard hit. because they will have invested time, resources, and expectations in a package that was designed to change everything. And in such a tight championship, missing that moment can mean getting stuck again in that middle zone where you're not fast enough to dominate, nor slow enough to rebuild. That is the real risk. That's why Miami is not just an evolution. It's a total bet. Is Ferrari putting its first big card of the season on the table with the intention of changing history, or once again falling short? And the big question that remains in the air is simple, but decisive. Are we about to see the definitive rebirth of Ferrari, or just another attempt that falls halfway? Ferrari arrives in Miami with more than just a package of improvements. It arrives with a declaration of intent. After start to the season, where they have shown they have the potential but not the tools to turn it into victories, this Grand Prix represents the moment where all that can change. Is not just another evolution. It is not a progressive update. It is the clearest attempt to break with their own limitations and transform themselves into the team they really can be. Because in the end, it all comes down to one idea. Ferrari doesn't need to be faster, it needs to be complete. And that is exactly what they are looking for with this pack and a half. Resolve their greatest weakness. Eliminate that inconsistency that has prevented them from competing face-to-face in decisive moments, and turn a competitive car into a winning car. If they achieve it, the impact will not only be in results, it will be in the structure of the championship itself. The dynamics, strategies, and above all, the pressure within the grid will change. Miami will not define a champion, but it can define who really has the tools to be won. And that is where Ferrari plays much more than a weekend. The narrative of their entire season is at stake. It is a game of moving from promise to reality. The game is to prove that this time, when they said that everything was going to change, it was true. Because if Ferrari hits the mark, we won't be talking about an improvement, we'll be talking about the beginning of something completely different. And if not, it will be another missed opportunity at a time when there is no longer room to continue waiting. Let me know in the comments what you think about all this.